The opinions and suggestions expressed on the following program are solely those of the participants and are not necessarily endorsed by KRMG, Cox Media Group Incorporated, or the program sponsors. This following program is sponsored by Causeway, LLC. Information in this broadcast is not intended as an investment, tax, or financial advice. Matthew Moore is not a licensed investment advisor and speaks solely from his experience and opinions. All information in this broadcast is for entertainment or educational purposes only. Matthew Moore, Causeway, LLC, and Cox Media Group Tulsa are not responsible for the success or failure of any person's investment decisions or purchases. Matthew Moore, Causeway, LLC, and Cox Media Group Tulsa makes no and expressly disclaims all representations, warranties, and guarantees with respect to this broadcast and its sponsors. Investing in any market is inherently risky and can be financially dangerous. Invest at your own risk. Gather knowledge in the world of cryptocurrency right now on 102.3 KRMG, Tulsa's news and talk. Welcome to Cryptocurrency with Matthew J. Moore. Matthew is locally based right here in Tulsa. Questions, comments, concerns? Call 918-460-5764 or send us an open mic using the KRMG app. Now, here's Cryptocurrency with Matthew J. Moore.
And good Sunday evening to you. My name is Russell Mills. Thank you very much for joining us for Cryptocurrency with Matthew J. Moore. We are live and local in the big city of Tulsa. Dodged a few raindrops out there, if we can take that as proof that we're actually here tonight. And we've got a great show in store for you. We've got a special guest. I will let Matt introduce him and the topic du jour. Matthew J. Moore, how you doing, Matt?
This is my favorite time of the week because we get to talk about my favorite subject, which is money, cryptocurrency, monetary policy. And, you know, just before we dive into all this, I do have some special people listening to the show this evening, and I would like to give a warm and wonderful shout out to my nephew, Weston Case. Buddy, it was fun playing basketball with you today. I hope you enjoy the show. And, hey, what's up, Chelsea and Tanner? That's mom and dad, by the way.
So did Weston take you to school?
You know, he almost did. You know, I was having to perfect his layups, but he was catching on so quick. I was so proud.
Outstanding.
So proud of him.
All right.
He beat him. He beat him. I 100% believe that Weston was the victor.
I'm trying to save my dignity here. But anyways, so let's dive into the topic here. If you've been paying attention to the news in crypto over the last few months, you will have noticed a major trend. Whether it's El Salvador making Bitcoin an official form of money, or Ukraine and Russia, both countries making Bitcoin legal during the current war, the trend is really picking up. Just this week, we saw Lugano, Switzerland, which is a city, make Bitcoin a legal tender. And even here in America, states like Arizona are making efforts to have Bitcoin become legal tender. But the real question is, can American states do such a thing? Would the U.S. Constitution have to be changed for an American state to take this kind of action? What about gold and silver? I mean, historically, it's been the constitutional form of money, which I might add was a natural handcuff to government spending. But sadly, we have abandoned this type of money many, many years ago, and we simply ignore the Constitution in this matter. And for some reason, it seems people just don't really care. And, you know, in my opinion, I think they will one day, because I guarantee you that by then it'll be too late for us. Because these actions do not go without consequence, and history is not in our favor. I have my opinions on this, and I am very vocal on them. It's very concerning to me that this issue is not front and center in the national debate. One thing is for sure, though, the powers that be do not want this subject on center stage. It would essentially reveal how much of a Ponzi scheme this current system is, and would strip the very thing that gives America its power. What is that power? It's the ability to create money out of thin air without really any true accountability, which honestly allows us to grow federal government, hook people on government handouts, and go deeper and deeper into debt. So, you know, it just doesn't sound good. You know, the whole scenario, we've got to have some kind of different kind of money system. That's why I'm so passionate about cryptocurrency. You know, there's no doubt that I have strong opinions about this, but to help me unpack these truth bombs is my co-host, Eric Cooper. Eric, welcome to another glorious episode, my friend.
You know, Matt, 6-year-olds can get this. My daughter, we're watching Goonies, and they're down in the basement, and the money machine's just going on, and Finley goes, how do they create money? And I go, well, technically, Finley, they can just create it. And she goes, oh, that's weird.
system of debt.
6-year-old.
Yeah.
6-year-old. She understands that does not make sense.
Yeah, and that's why we do this show on cryptocurrency. Is just it provides so much relevance and understanding to what cryptocurrency is trying to solve, and that's why I have the positions that I take on this stuff. But before we introduce our guest today and kick off the conversation, can you share with our audience how they might be able to hedge themselves from reckless currency creation?
Absolutely. This segment is made possible by a company called Hedge. Do you have a strategy to obtain cryptocurrency on a regular basis? Do you plan to automate your dollar cost averaging? What about getting all or even part of your paycheck in cryptocurrency? Hedge is revolutionizing how you get paid. Hedge makes it easy to automatically convert your pay into crypto. Whether you're an employer or an employee, you can get started in 4 easy steps. Start getting paid in Bitcoin, Ethereum, or Litecoin. Crypto is a long-term play. Start a strategy today. Hedge is here to make it easy and stack those sats month after month. What are you waiting for? Start living on the Hedge.
I'm not waiting.
Do not do it. Check them out, gethedge.io. Again, that's gethedge.io. And Matt, I'm using them, so.
No, yeah, absolutely, man. And if you guys are ready to dive right in and you want to learn more, just let them know that Matt sent you. That's me, moi. Go to mattjmoore.com and on the homepage, scroll down and find the button that says Get Hedge. You can start the sign-up process today. It is super, super easy. All right, well, let's do this. Let's dive right in. Let's introduce our guest and my favorite state senator and friend, Nathan Dahm. There is no doubt that I believe Nathan deeply cherishes these ideas of sound money, free markets and the Constitution and personal liberty. In 2019, I had the honor to help Nathan with some of the first pro-cryptocurrency legislation for the state of Oklahoma. And in addition, I got to help him organize an interim study so the Oklahoma Senate could be educated on cryptocurrency. Senator, welcome to one of America's only radio shows dedicated to cryptocurrency. I'm stoked to have you on today. Can you share a little bit about yourself to the audience?
Matt, it is awesome to be with you, and Eric, thank you both for having me. I know this is a long time that we've talked about getting on the show, so this is a long time in coming. So glad to finally be in studio with you all, talk about this. I know you have been a leading voice in crypto for a long time. It's been an honor to work with you on the legislation and on trying to educate members at the Oklahoma State Legislature, which you experienced is quite the process in,
Yes,
in educating these people, which, I serve with them. I'm honored to serve in that capacity, but, the average age at the Oklahoma Senate is like 120 or something. No, it's not that bad, but sometimes
it just feels that way.
It feels that way. But sometimes, educating people on these new concepts and stuff, when they have a hard time managing their email, it could be an uphill battle and a heavy lift. So you've been great in helping with that to help to get the conversation started, because that is part of the process, is having those conversations. And that's what this show is about, is educating people out there, because then those constituents can reach out to their state senators, their state reps, their federal congressmen and senators, whoever the case might be, mayors. I mean, they need to be talking to their elected officials about the importance of crypto just as much as they're talking to their family and friends about it. So it's an honor to be with you all. I mean, I can give you background
Well, I
on some
actually,
of the stuff, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, actually, I kind of wanted to dive into this. This was really kind of my first question, and you were kind of leading into it. I mean, you have a family history, or your family has history of personally experiencing the ill fate of central planning, abuse of power,
yes.
and and that even translates into the money system. We're seeing it right now with Ukraine and Russia, and even in Canada. I mean, cryptocurrency is playing such an important role in people's livelihood and being able to survive in these certain conditions. I mean, I think you said your dad's in Romania right now helping Ukrainian refugees.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. So that's putting it lightly to say that we have a family history. So my parents moved from Oklahoma to Romania when I was 10 years old to serve as missionaries. They're still over there to this day, still doing the mission work over there. And right now, they're helping with the Ukrainian refugees on the border there with Romania. So having lived over there, that was kind of my catalyst for why I first got involved in government. Like I said, we moved over there when I was 10 years old, and I was old enough to be able to see the difference between America and the system of government that we have and what I was experiencing over in Romania. It was after the fall of communism, but it was still very much controlled. I mean, the former members of the Communist Party still had control of the entire parliament. Everything was still run by the government. There was 4 petrol stations, gas stations in a country or in a city of 2 million people. You know, they were all controlled by the government.
Wow.
It was on a rolling time of when you could get gas. They were only open on certain days, certain times of when you could go there. The supermarkets were not super; they were barely markets. I mean, you know, it was a small room with 3 cans of beans on there, and so we saw the central planning and how it failed. But especially saw inflation. And I know we're experiencing some of the worst inflation in decades here in America, but I've been warning about this for a long time.
Yeah, so have we.
And crypto is a great hedge against that. And so when we were over in Romania, the example I use is their largest single banknote at one point was 5 million.
Wow.
Not like $5 or $50. It was 5 million of their currency called lei, and that was the equivalent of about $150. So you could take that and go to a grocery store and buy basically 1 week's worth of grocery for 5 million of their currency.
Assuming they had a week's worth of groceries
Exactly.
at the store. Yeah. Romania, after the Ceausescu regime, what a mess. Hey, you are listening to Cryptocurrencies with Matthew J. Moore. We got to take a quick time out, but we'll be back with more of Mr. Moore. This is 102.3 KRMG, Tulsa's News and Talk. Welcome back to Cryptocurrency with Matthew J. Moore. We are live and local in the big city of Tulsa with our special guest, State Senator Nathan Dahm. And, oh, by the way, we should rip that Band-Aid off. U.S. Senate hopeful, Nathan Dahm. And we're not going to go down that alley too far, but we'd be remiss if we did not at least mention it. He has been working on cryptocurrency-related legislation for a while now. In fact, maybe one of the few lawmakers who has a working knowledge of cryptocurrency. So naturally, he's been working with our guy, Matthew J. Moore. Here's Matt.
That's exactly right, Russell, and that's why I think we hit it far off, or we hit it off way before crypto. But I think it was my constant nagging in his ear about cryptocurrency. I don't know. You can correct me, Nathan, if you want, but
that helped.
It worked on me.
Yeah, it helped. I was already on that path, but yeah, you definitely helped it.
Nate, I want to start it off with somewhat of a rhetorical question. Does sound money, limited supply, stuff like that, play an important role in proper functions in the government? Talk to me.
Absolutely. I mean, that was my catalyst. I mean, in the last segment, we were kind of talking about that, about how I experienced inflation over in Romania so bad that they dropped 4 zeros off their currency. People, if they kept their money in their savings account for 10 years and went back to withdraw it out of their savings account, their money was basically worthless. Some of the things that we're seeing in this day and age, it's been not as bad in America. I mean, it's a more slow crash or descent, that we've seen. I mean, when the U.S. dollar has lost 97% of its value since the Federal Reserve was created, and part of that, the whole purpose for the Federal Reserve was to eliminate inflation. At least that's the claim for why they created it, and they've basically inflated our currency to eliminate 98% of the value of it. So, when I first moved back in 2007 and saw the TARP bailout, $700 billion that they literally were just going to print up out of thin air. That's what was kind of got me involved in government, having lived through it, experienced it in a socialist country, and seeing that. I was just like, yeah, this is unsustainable. It's immoral. Most of how they spend the money is unconstitutional. Right. The Constitution is very clear on coining money, on gold and silver, on something that has tangible value. And right now, we base everything we have on the full faith and credit of the United States government, which we are seeing more and more. People are realizing there's not a whole lot of faith in the United States government for good reason. It's just the value of them putting their name on a piece of paper. And so I encourage people to diversify and to get involved in gold, silver, crypto, whatever they can to get away from the government fiat currency that's controlled by the Federal Reserve. And let me point this out too, if I may, real quick.
Yeah.
The Federal Reserve is as federal as Federal Express.
Right.
Okay. It is a private banking cartel that is controlling our monetary supply, controls the money for the benefit of a few select people that are involved with it. It is not looking out for the good of the people of this country by any means.
No. Right. Yeah, and that brings we've talked ad nauseum about all of that, and I pound that message constantly because I think people need to hear it. They need to look into it. They need to learn about it. obviously, we worked on some legislation that would be beneficial for, pro cryptocurrency in the state of Oklahoma, whether it was political campaigns accepting crypto or exemptions from security laws if it acted like a currency or a utility token, corporations being allowed to use blockchain, and modifies some of the LLC laws. We even talked about, exempting from capital gains tax. I mean, there's all these things that we've done. And I know you're actively working on legislation for gold and silver, which I'm also a big proponent of, and I think it's a constitutional form of money. I mean, it's stated plainly in the Constitution.
Sure.
But I wanted to start here. There's currently a lot of countries either making Bitcoin legal tender or are pushing this idea, which is a fascinating development because Bitcoin is an asset with no counterparty risk, unlike fiat money. In many ways, Bitcoin acts like a digital version of gold for the digital world. In my opinion, Bitcoin is a free market development and is really the first form of money that can protect one's wealth from both government inflation and government confiscation. I mean, the famous Austrian economist, one of my favorites, F.A. Hayek, once stated, "I don't believe we shall ever have a good money again before we can take the thing out of the hands of the government. That is, we can't take it violently out of the hands of the government. All we can do is by some sly roundabout way to introduce something they can't stop." Hayek basically, in my opinion, prophesied Bitcoin decades before Bitcoin was invented. How do you, and I know you're a proponent of gold and silver because it is in the Constitution, but, how do you personally feel about the idea of separation of state and money?
I fully support it. I mean, yes, the Constitution does empower the federal government to do certain things, one of which is to coin money. If you actually look through the Constitutional Convention, the various proposals for the Constitution, I know we don't teach this in our schools, so people don't know this, but what we have as our Constitution was not the original draft, all right? There was the men that worked through this, through different committees, through the process, made changes to it as it went through there. It had to be voted on by the people, and then they proposed the Bill of Rights, the 10 amendments that we got. And so the original version, though, if you go back to the Articles of Confederation and compare that, there was a lot of things that it went through that process. But one of the main things that they were deliberate in is saying coin money, because they did not want paper money. Right. Because they had experienced that firsthand. I mean, they had seen what happens when the government can just basically write an IOU.
Continental dollar.
I mean, it's worth what the government says it is. And when the government is worthless, then the paper money becomes worthless. So people don't realize that they were very deliberate in saying that they could coin money, and then also said that states could not make anything but gold or silver coin a legal payment and tender of debt. Right. And so we have to have a better understanding of that. But when it comes to separation of state and money, just because we have granted the federal government authority to do a certain thing doesn't mean they necessarily have the sole authority.
The monopoly?
Now, on some things, yes, okay. You don't necessarily have an alternative judiciary system, right? I mean, if you as an individual want to, create a contract or something, fine or whatever, and set terms for that. But we still have the law there to enforce that. But look at the post office and post roads, right? That's a constitutional authority that we've granted to the federal government. Does that mean that we can't have UPS, DHL, Federal Express? Right. Does that mean we can't have any alternative to be able to ship mail and be able to deliver packages just because we've given part of that authority to the federal government? Absolutely not. So I am fully supportive of alternative measures within the private sector, separate from the government, especially to keep that control out of the government's hands.
So competition is definitely a big thing. And I'll probably have a question I want to ask you when we come back to our third segment, because I personally feel like having something to compete against it, that's the way to go.
Well, just the point exactly. The chairman of the Federal Reserve basically stated that he sees that a world with two world reserve currencies can exist. So, it's not like this concept isn't being talked about. To what extent, to what levels? That's obviously up for debate. But it's just a fascinating conversation because, people are just so used to pulling out green pieces of paper in their pocket, and they think that's money, and they don't know how it works, where it comes from. They don't really know anything, or who knows, maybe they don't have an idea of sound economics. But that's all for another show. I'm just making a point here. This is why we do this. This is why we're talking about alternatives, things like cryptocurrency. And if you want to kind of wrap your head around crypto more, go to my website, mattjmoore.com. I'd be more than happy to set up a consultation, explain to you how it works. Maybe if you want to get into the space, I can hold your hand through that process too. There's a lot of things we can do. But I want you to stay put. We got more of a conversation here with Nathan, and you don't want to miss it because it's going to get really juicy.
All right. You are listening to Cryptocurrency with Matthew J. Moore. I'm Russell Mills. Thank you very much for tuning in tonight. And again, these concepts are a little complicated. I mean, if I handed you a dollar bill and said, now tell me exactly how that works, could you do it? I couldn't. But does that mean that I don't know how to save money, or does that mean I shouldn't get involved in cryptocurrencies? No, that's crazy. You just need to know how to do it safely, and that's why we hire experts and talk to people who know what they're doing, right? Like Matthew J. Moore. We'll be back with more Cryptocurrency with Matthew J. Moore after the news and weather. You're listening to 102.3 KRMG, Tulsa's News and Talk.
I didn't think that we were going to be able to ask that question and then get an answer in 2 minutes, so I figured I would.
Welcome back to Cryptocurrency with Matthew J. Moore. We're live and local in Tulsa on a Sunday evening, as we are pretty much every Sunday evening about this time. Hey, if you missed an episode or you'd like to go back and get a little deeper into the whole cryptocurrency thing, we try to make it understandable. We try to make it, plain English for you. So you can find all of that stuff at krmg.com in the on-demand section. And you know what? I'll bet you Matt and Eric will tell you all the other places you can find it. Gosh, iTunes, SoundCloud, right? YouTube,
Yeah.
Facebook.
Spotify, YouTube, yeah.
You guys are absolutely ubiquitous. They're everywhere, including sitting right next to me, Matthew J. Moore.
Hey, thank you, Russell. And yeah, that's right. Usually, Eric gets me all excited to share all the hidden places you can find our show. Or should I not say hidden, because they're definitely out there in the public. But we are making some noise, and, this is the right place. If you're interested in cryptocurrency, sound money, monetary policy, these are the conversations that we have. But I wanted to kick it off here. Eric, I hope you don't mind if I take the reins on this.
Go for it.
But, and our guest, State Senator Nathan Dahm, he's been in the studio with us having a conversation about cryptocurrency. And I had the privilege of working with him on some legislation about cryptocurrency. And I guess this kind of goes into my question, Nathan, which is currently we've been seeing some bills come out of Arizona that are trying to make Bitcoin a legal tender in their state. I think it's a cool idea, but I also have my doubts about it. And it's not because Bitcoin isn't up for the task, but it's my personal opinion that the U.S. Constitution would have to be changed in order to allow such a thing. You might have a different opinion on this, and I might be wrong, and if so, that's totally fine with me. I don't mind being corrected. It's not like I'm anti-Bitcoin, anti-gold and silver. But, for example, in your mind, when you read the Constitution, is a state tax that is levied on a person considered a debt owed?
Yeah, so when we start getting into all those complexities, and it is pretty complex, but yes, I feel like when it talks about paying our debts, we're supposed, taxes or anything like that, it's supposed to be done in gold and silver.
Right.
So we're currently out of violation with that anyways by using Federal Reserve notes. When we were using silver certificates, it was a little bit more. It was at least backed by silver. So you can make the case, well, yeah, this is being paid in silver because it's a silver certificate. The founders still had concerns with paper certificates, paper money, bills of credit is what they would call them. They had concerns with those types of things.
Right.
So on the idea of cryptos being made a legal tender in states, that is a little bit of a concern. I share that same concern from a constitutional perspective because it says no state shall make anything but gold or silver coin.
A tender.
Yes,
payment of debts.
for payment of debts. So then you get into, okay, well, what about for other things? For payment of debts to, are you talking about to the government or are you talking about to each other? Can we legalize it for individuals to use it, but not for government payments? But then there's also, cryptos that are backed by gold and silver. Right. And so you have that aspect. I mean, I introduced a bill this year that would allow you to pay your local taxes, city and county taxes in crypto because those aren't states. Yeah, they're political subdivisions of the states, but they're not specifically necessarily prohibited from being able to accept that. So you can kind of make those various arguments. It can get very complicated in that, but I wish that we were actually backed by gold and silver in this state and in the federal government. The other thing that I've proposed or suggested is the tribes. I mean, the tribes could have their own cryptocurrency. I mean, they could make it that then you could use at all their various entities. I'm not, promoting anything in particular, but I mean, they easily could. They could make a crypto backed currency that then could be considered a legal tender because they do have some autonomy with some of those types of things that they could do. But I've also talked to the tribes about trying to create gold and silver backed currency that they could do as well. So my focus is on those things that actually have tangible substance, and the main thing is paper does not.
Right.
What's the difference between a $1 bill and a $100 bill?
Right.
The artwork on it, I mean, the extra numbers, the picture on the front, that's the only difference. Okay, well, what's the difference between 1 ounce of gold and 10 ounces of gold? Okay, or 100 ounces of gold. Okay, that's a substantial, actual, tangible difference. And even with Bitcoin and with other cryptos and everything, there is a substantial difference between the coins because of the the mining of them and then and how the creation of them and the actual intrinsic value that they have. Backing them up. So when it comes to paper is one of the most worthless things. I mean, it doesn't matter what's on it, whether it's ink or, I mean, what's the difference between our dollars and toilet paper? I mean, it's just, the use for it and the value of it and everything. And so paper is pretty much a worthless commodity, especially in the digital world where we don't even use paper for, for writing things or taking notes. Most of it is all done digitally anyway. So crypto is the way of the future. How we implement that from a constitutional perspective, though, is definitely a question we need to be addressed. Yeah.
I mean, because, you look at Bitcoin, it does have properties that are similar to gold. It's emulating gold by this mining process and the code. There will only ever be 21 million of them ever in existence. And to theoretically change that would be practically impossible. So it does have this unique element to it. And I think watching where the conversation goes is going to be fascinating. I do know, until we get to that point or until we cross that bridge, there are, states like Texas that are creating a depository for their gold bullion. Are you doing something like that for Oklahoma right now?
Yes, I've actually introduced that bill a couple times. I tried it about 4 years ago when I first heard about Texas having their physical gold and silver in their bullion depository there. And so I tried to introduce that 4 years ago. It didn't go anywhere. I introduced it again this year. The chairman of the committee just said he had no interest in trying to do that. That'd be too big of a heavy lift. So I talked to him about, okay, well, what if I change the bill and instead I just make it permissible for our state treasurer to actually invest in gold and silver, because it's the current law says what the treasurer can invest in, and that's not one of the things. And he was open to that initially, but then came back and said no, didn't want to deal with that either. But there are a lot of states that are working to move their investments into gold and silver. There's a lot of universities that have their endowments in gold and silver. There's a lot of foreign countries that are recalling their gold and silver, trying to get it back into their borders. So people are seeing the value of sound money policies, of having those actual intrinsic value items like gold and silver, or even like Bitcoin and cryptos and stuff. People are finally starting to see through how inflationary it can be by having paper money. I think a lot of people are realizing that across the world, not just here in America, but across the country for sure.
And the fact that it's technically a liability too.
Yeah. Nathan, let's talk central banks.
Do we have to?
What are your thoughts? Just briefly, yeah.
What are your thoughts around having an elite group of people centrally planning and controlling the monetary system?
Oh, I think they think it's wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, obviously.
But obviously, I disagree with it. I encourage people, if they haven't looked it up, look up the book, The Creature from Jekyll Island.
Oh, I love that
one.
one.
You'll see how these bankers came up with this system and an idea. And a lot of people don't realize that, we have had a Bank of the United States in the past numerous times and everything. There was still even contention with the founding fathers on that. If anybody has seen Hamilton, the theatrical play, then maybe they got some taste of that there was some conversation in that about, how that could look, or what that could be done from the federal government side of things. But yeah, you can either talk about, okay, having a central bank that the government controls, or a central bank that the bankers basically control as a cartel, that they're able to manipulate interest rates and all kinds of other things. I am all for opening it up and allowing, competing currencies, getting the government out of our affairs as much as possible. So I fully support eliminating the Federal Reserve, ending the Fed. And so I've publicly stated that. There's not a whole lot I can do at the state level on that, but that's one thing in my bid for U.S. Senate that I've been very vocal about, trying to end the Fed and eliminate that. Again, the Federal Reserve is as Federal as Federal Express. Yeah. It's a private entity that controls our monetary supply.
And good luck trying to audit it either. But there's a lot of people listening to this show who are are just major Bitcoiners, love cryptocurrency, love this idea of separation of state and money, this giant experiment that's taking place in today's society. You are running for the U.S. Senate. Can you share your thoughts? What kind of if you got elected to the U.S. Senate, what would you do for a lot of these Bitcoiners that are hoping that there be more pro Bitcoin people in the U.S. Senate? Would you fight for them?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's what I've been doing in the state Senate currently. Like you touched on several of the things that I worked on. One of the bills that we had would have allowed for people to donate crypto to campaigns. So our current laws say that you can give, certain amounts of money, and then it says or other items of value, but they didn't really have a definition of items of value, and so it was like, okay, can it be crypto or not? So I was trying to just clarify the law and say, absolutely you can, especially when you look at, the Citizens United decision and then these other Supreme Court decisions where they've said that money is a form of free speech. Well, then crypto should be a form of free speech, and so you should be able to make your donations that way if you can. So I've worked on that. Like I said, I've worked on ways to be able to legalize it to where people could use that to pay their bills or pay their taxes at the local and county level and those types of things. I want to do everything I can to empower crypto to be that competition. We were talking about that before. Yeah. I think competition is good. I think it makes us better. And right now, when we have this monopoly being controlled by these central bankers, I think we need alternatives. And I think there are people that are smart enough to see that we are facing serious difficult times ahead, and they want to be able to hedge their bets, and they want to be able to invest in a crypto type thing. So I will do everything I can to be able to support, getting crypto more mainstream and protections for the people for sure.
I love that. And before we go to break, I'm going to leave with this quote here. It's from Thomas Jefferson in 1798. He wrote a letter, and in this letter, he basically regrets giving the federal government some powers. I'm going to read this verbatim. I wish it were possible to obtain a single amendment to our Constitution. I'd be willing to depend on that alone for the reduction of the administration of our government to the genuine principles of its Constitution. I mean an additional article taking from the federal government the power of borrowing. I now deny their power of making paper money or anything else a legal tender. Whew, that is a bit of a soundbite, but when we come back, we got more.
We are talking about what is money and is Bitcoin, and should it be a legal tender in the United States? Can it be? Does the Constitution allow that? Heck, according to our guest, it doesn't even really allow the money system we have right now. So, well, there you know. You never know where we're going to go, but we are going to go away for a second, but we will come back. You're listening to Cryptocurrency with Matthew J. Moore on 102.3 KRMG, Tulsa's News and Talk. Oh, welcome back to Cryptocurrency with Matthew J. Moore. I'm Russell Mills. Good Sunday evening to you. Thank you for hanging out with us and learning just a little bit more about all that stuff. Are you stacking the sats? Do you even know what that means? Have you taken the orange pill? See, I'm learning all the language because I've been hanging around with this guy. His name is Matthew J. Moore. Hey, Matt.
Hey, I know that's right. We need to just do a whole episode
show?
on lingo.
An index.
Yeah, an index show.
Crypto index.
Yeah.
I think we should do a call-in show at some point, too, because I know there's people out there with questions we haven't thought of.
Right. Well, and we've finally built momentum with the show, so I'm sure we got a lot of avid listeners now. So that would be a great idea. I like that idea, Russell. But yeah, if you are unfamiliar, Sats is short for Satoshis, and Satoshis is this smaller division of a Bitcoin.
And how many are there, Matt?
Well, it is divisible by 8 decimal points. So, if you want to just buy Bitcoin, you don't have to buy a whole coin. That's the thing that most people, yeah, exactly, right? They just don't get that sometimes. So I have to explain that all the time. But before we bring this conversation back into gear, I'm going to hand it over to my co-host, Eric Cooper, and he's going to share us about our last sponsor on the show.
Yes, and we stack the sats every single day. But what makes us able to do this is it's brought to you by our wonderful sponsors. And this segment's brought to you by our newest and our local sponsor. Currently, we've been experiencing extreme swings in the weather with another chance of snow on Friday. And if you still have that salt and sand on your car from these past snow days, don't wait any longer. That stuff will eat away at your car. It's important to get that stuff off as soon as possible, and that's why the sale is brought to you by Bubble Up Car Wash in Broken Arrow off of 470 East Kenosha. So let's see here. That's 71st and the Lynn Lane area, and they are Broken Arrow's newest locally owned car wash with all the bells and whistles to make your car clean, shiny, and dry. Come take the advantage of their free vacuums, air wands, and towels. They have unlimited wash plans starting at $19.99 a month, and you can add family members for $15 per vehicle. You got the winter blues? Come cheer up at Bubble Up, and who knows, you might even catch a glimpse of their family dog, Bentley the Bubble Up Pup. Check them out at www.mybubblup.com. And we've had a wonderful show today, Matt, and Senator Nathan Dahm's in here with us. And so he's one of your good friends, so I'm going to let you take it from here.
Yeah, no, it's actually been a great time. I'm glad to have you on the show, and I've enjoyed the conversation about cryptocurrency, how it relates to gold and silver, sound money, monetary policy. Because again, all of these things fall within the conversation of cryptocurrency. I mean, part of my selling point for Bitcoin is understanding how the current system works. So there's really no way to get around that aspect of it. But the looks on people's faces when they start hearing some of these things, and then they go do their homework, and they're like, oh, okay, I didn't realize that's how it worked. I mean, that's why I do this show. It's great. But Nathan, you've obviously heard me go on and on and on about crypto, and I know you've done your own reading, and we can't give financial advice on this show. It's not what we're doing, But what would be your message to the people of Oklahoma who are owners of cryptocurrencies and who are looking to maybe put the federal government's spending in check or these crazy deficits and debts?
Well, we need people that actually understand the monetary policy. I can tell you, I appreciate a lot of the people that I serve with in the state legislature and a lot of people that I've met in Washington, D.C., in Congress and the U.S. Senate. But a lot of them have absolutely no understanding of our monetary policy. And so they don't understand the decisions that they're making, how it's impacting other people. I mean, right now, every single child born in this country is $90,000 in debt because of the national debt. So we have serious issues with that. We're seeing inflation continue to go up, and this is nothing compared to the hyperinflation that I experienced while living over in Romania, that other countries have experienced throughout human history. So they need to understand, just as individuals, the importance of being able to diversify their assets and actually have something tangible for as inflation continues to hit. So I encourage people. I'm not giving investment advice or anything like that, but do not put your trust in government or especially in any government-backed note. So obviously, there's a lot of people who you probably read authors-wise. So I'm going to ask you a two-part. Number one, where's the best places to go for people to find out about your, kind of your favorites for monetary policy? And then obviously, as you run for the Senate, where can they find out more about your endeavor? So I'm a huge fan of Austrian economics. The Mises Institute has all kinds of information. They have events throughout the country, even some down in Texas. So I encourage people to visit the Mises Institute. If they want to learn more about my campaign, they can visit dahmforsenate.com. Dahm is spelled D-A-H-M. That's DAHMFORSENAT.com, dahmforsenate.com. If they want to get involved in other ways or drop some coin and help support, they can hit me up on Signal. Don't text me. Contact me on Signal.
Well, Senator, it's been absolutely an honor, and thank you for spending your Sunday evening with us, and keep up the great work. I look forward to having you back. What were you going to say, Eric?
Matt, it's almost time. We got like 30 days till we go to Miami. And if any interest of going, go to mattjmoore.com. Tickets are now $900. So when they were $400, you only saved $40. But right. Let me check my math. Yep, $90 is what you can save, but 10%. So KRMG 10 is the promo. And Matt J. Moore, you can find that next week. We also have March 27th too, right?
March 26th.
That's right.
Bitcoin Day in Oklahoma City. So if you can't afford to go to the trip in Miami, we are doing a smaller version of it in Oklahoma City.
The week before.
Yeah. Well, and is that the week before?
The weekend before, yeah.
Okay. So anyways, if you're interested in that, go to my website, mattjmoore.com. There's a bunch of promo codes, discount codes. You can enter those and come join us. We're definitely going to have a fun little coalition. And I just want to remind you again, if this is a learning curve for you, you can go to my website. You can set up a consultation. I'd be more than happy to help you. And even if you just want the skinny on the monetary system, you can buy my book, Foundations for Liberty. We're here to educate. This is why we do this show. So, again, thanks for listening. Thanks for joining us. We will see you guys next week.
All right. Yes, we'll be here bright and shiny, 5 p.m. Tulsa time for more cryptocurrency with Matthew J. Moore on 102.3 KRMG, Tulsa's News and Talk. I'm Russell Mills. See you next week.